Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kate and today I'm going to be teaching you how to paint this easy Christmas watercolor bell. Let's get started. Before we start our painting, we first are going to sketch out our bell. So this bell is going to be a circle, and I'm going to take my washi tape and I'm going to place it toward about a third of the way down. And then I am going to trace inside my tape a light circle. So I just get a nice perfect circle and I don't have to go around so much because I'm doing this straight on my watercolor paper. And then I'm just going to kind of create a curved line, kind of curving upward in the center of this circle. So kind of cutting this circle in half but curving it upward to give it more of a three-dimensional look. And then I'm going to start from the center at the bottom of our circle. Well, that's where I'm going to meet. So I'm going to kind of make a V meeting in the middle. So I'm going to make one curved line down coming to the middle. And I'm going to do the same thing on the right side. A curved line coming down, meeting in the middle. And then just the tiniest little circles at the top. And then I'm just going to add a tiny little square at the top of our circle for where the ribbon will connect to the bell. And then I'm just going to take my eraser and I'm just going to lightly erase these lines so that you can still see them, but they're not going to be too prominent. They're not going to show through with when our paint goes on top. All right, and there you have the basic sketch of the bell. We are just going to add the ribbon and the mistletoe without drawing in any lines, at least to start. We may come back in with some guidelines later, but right now I'm just going to start with the bell and then we'll go from there if we add any more sketch lines in there. Now that we have our sketch, we can start painting in our bell. So I'm just going to take some clean water on my brush and I'm going to create a very, very light wash of yellow ochre. And then I'm going to apply this very loose layer all over the entire bell. And I want this to be pretty wet. I'm going to immediately come back in with some darker tones. So I don't want this to dry too quickly on me. So I have my lightest layer in place. So now I'm going to add some more yellow ochre to my paint mixture. And then on the left side, I'm going to start tapping in some of that darker color. You could see how right when I put that down, it just expanded everywhere. And that's what I want it to do. I want it to kind of seep and just really give that nice shadowing. I'm going to take a little bit of paint off my brush and just kind of blend it out a little bit into the light yellow. And just kind of come around those outer lines, just clean it up a little bit. And I'm going to get a little bit more of that paint on my brush. Just tap it in right down here. A little bit more up in here. And up into that top area. And then I'm going to do just a little bit with the tip of my brush. So I still have that same amount of paint. I'm going to just carry it along that line that I drew earlier. I'm going to get a little bit more paint and then just tap it in along that line. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of darker paint around the edges over here. Not a lot because I still want this area over to here to seem darker and more of the highlighted, the darker area where this side I want to see more highlighted. Just to kind of finish it off like that. I'm going to clean my brush off. And then I'm just going to blend this right here. So this was a clean brush. Very, very little water on it. Just like that, around the edges a little bit. Just trying to clean it up. All right, and I'm going to leave it like this, and we're going to let this dry, and then we'll come back and add some more detail to the bell. For this step, we are just going to repeat the exact same thing we did over the layer. So this is just going to add a little bit more pigment to our bell. It's not really going to add any extra detail. It's just going to kind of make it a little bit more vibrant. So that first layer was completely dry, and now I'm going back over it with a very light wash of that yellow ochre again. So now it's all wet with that light wash, and I'm going to go and get a little bit of darker paint on my brush. I'm going to dab off any extra paint on a paper towel, and then I'm just going to dab that darker paint in the exact same areas I did earlier. So again, I'm not really adding I'm not adding any detail. I'm just kind of going over with a second coat just to kind of sharpen things up. And then this is a great time if you did something with that first layer that you didn't like. This would be a great time if you wanted to cover it up. This would be the time to do it. All right, and then I'm going to leave it like this, and I'm going to let this layer dry, and then we'll actually add our detail to our bell to finish off that section of this painting. Now what we're going to do, since our bell has dried, we are going to take a really dark tone of yellow ochre. I mixed just the smallest amount of Payne's Gray into my mixture, and I am just going to outline little areas of the bell. So that line that we created through the center, I'm going to very carefully follow that line with that paint. And I'm going to add a little, very light, curved line underneath. I'm going to add that same paint up onto the top of the bell where it'll attach in with our ribbon. And then also, I'm going to do it right along these lines, making a tiny little ball at the end. And I'm just going to take that color just very lightly with the very tip of my brush. Just going to clean up the outer line of the bell. You don't have to worry about doing the outer line area if you really thought your paint dried very smooth. I just really noticed some rough edges, and I wanted to clean that up before moving on. And just like that. All right, so now what we're going to do, even while this is still wet, we can continue working. I am going to take my pencil, and I'm very lightly going to sketch in the ribbon area. So I'm going to make a curved line coming up from the bell, just like that. And then I'm going to make a little curved box that it's going to come into. And then I'm going to make a much larger curved line, and it's going to come to kind of a straight rectangular point at the top, and then it's going to curve back down to that little square, and then we're going to come on the outside of it and then curve the opposite way, making a little ribbon just like that. And I will have a still image of this over on my blog if you want to be able to look at it and get the exact measurements without it continuing to move. And then I'm going to draw very light lines. So again, if you can't see these, I will have a still image over on my blog for you to look at. And I'm just going to make a very loose line where I want my mistletoe to come out. And I've noticed, especially just for myself, if you feel like you don't need a reference, having a line to know where my leaves go is huge, and it helps me so much put them in the right spot. So now we can go in with our mistletoe leaves, and then we'll come in after the leaves dry with our ribbon. So I'm going to mix up a very bluish green paint mixture. So I'm going to use ultramarine blue and a sage green, and maybe just the smallest bit of Payne's gray. And then I'm going to test that out on my separate sheet of paper. And then I'm going to dab off any extra paint. And then I am just going to start going in, starting at the tip. And I'm just going to paint in my mistletoe leaves. So these leaves are very round and curved. There's not a lot of point to them. The only place they'd probably point is right where they meet the stem. So it's a very easy leaf to start out with. You don't have to take a lot of time. You can just have fun putting in your curved leaves just right along that line that we just created. And then while my leaves are still wet, I'm going to take that same color, and with the tip of my brush, I'm going to connect all of these leaves with that green paint. Just like that. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing on the opposite side. Right, now that my leaves are in place, I'm just going to take that pink color, and then I'm just going to go down the lines, just like that. All right, and then we're going to let these leaves dry, and then we're going to come back in with some red paint for our ribbon, and then for the mistletoe berries. All right, and now we can add our red to our painting. So I've already mixed up a really deep mixture of Alzerian crimson. Hopefully I am pronouncing that correctly. And I'm just going to go straight into my ribbon. I'm going to start painting in, and then when I get to that little square that we drew, I'm going to try to leave some space. I'm going to dab my brush off. I'm just going to kind of blend out this paint color so that it's not super dark when it hits the kind of like the tie in our ribbon. I'm going to add a little bit more paint to the center of it. Just kind of dab it in there so it's a little uneven. And then I'm going to skip over that center area for now. And I'm going to come and do the exact same thing with the top. So I'm going to fill that in for the most part. And then when I get to that where it meets the tie, just going to kind of leave some white space for now. Fill in that top area all the way. I'm going to get a little bit more paint. Just kind of drop it in there, especially along the left edge of it, just to give some shadowing, just some depth, so it's not all one shade. And then I'm just going to very carefully just kind of blend out that line below between the top of the ribbon and the bottom. So I'm going to let these two areas dry before we do the inside of the ribbon and then the tie of the ribbon. And then I'm just going to take that same paint color while these are drying, and I'm going to add the berries to my mistletoe. Now all you have to do to add the berries is just create a little circle and leave the smallest amount of white space for a nice shine. And just kind of have fun with the pattern. In some places I'm going to put just one berry, and then in other places I'm going to add 3 or maybe just 2. I want the berries to be, I don't know, more thick, I guess, with this pattern. I guess I'm just being a little bit more generous with how many berries I'm going to be putting on this specific mistletoe look. Alright, and I'm going to do the exact same thing to the other side. It's okay if your berries touch your leaves. Down here I'm just going to add 2 little berries, and I think 1 more right here. Just like that. Alright, and then it still needs to dry. I can tell my paint isn't completely dry yet, so I'm just going to wait, and then I'm going to come back and finish off the ribbon. Alright, and to finish off our painting, we are going to just fill in the inside of our ribbon and then the ribbon tie. So I'm going to take a very deep tone of that crimson paint we are using. I'm going to add just a little bit of Payne's Gray to it to make it a little bit darker. And then I'm going to fill in the inside of this ribbon. I'm just going to try to leave a little bit of space just the smallest amount of space in between these two colors. And then I'm going to just have three thin lines coming out like that. And then the same down here, just a little quick line. Take that same paint color and I'm just going to go back through this really quickly just to smooth out some areas. Like that. All right, and I'm going to clean that off my brush. And then I'm going to take that regular crimson paint color we had used, and I'm going to fill in this center area with that same crimson paint. So it starts out as a pretty light wash. I'm going to take some more pigment on my brush, more paint, and I'm just going to dab that in. Just like that. All right, and then to finish this off, I am going to splatter some of my red paint around the bell and around the ribbon. So I'm just going to take my brush and very closely to my paper, I'm just going to very quickly tap in some paint so it's really sharp splatters. This is going to help me avoid getting my bell too much, keeping it really close to the painting. And I just really like how the really tight, quick splatters look. And then I'm going to clean my brush off, and I'm going to go into that yellow paint, that yellow ochre. I'm going to do the same thing. I want both of these colors on the back. Right. And there you have your watercolor Christmas bell. Hey everyone, thanks for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it helpful. If you did, please subscribe to this channel and give this video a thumbs up. If you'd like any extra details on this painting, like the paint colors I used or supplies that I used, head over to my blog, Reflecting Creation. I'll have a link in the description box below. Hope to see you again soon. Bye.